29th of August on a beautiful sunny morning at about a -2 foot tide. Our guest down on the beach with Lori, our honeymooning Virginians from Independence, and Dr. Sugar and his wife down there with Lori, and probably looking for an octopus den and just generally checking out the low tide area. George going along as the assistant to Lori. And the boat's there sitting on the bottom with the reminder that the tide could still fall another 2 or 3 feet on the biggest minus tide of the year. And the lodge is back up in that corner over there to the right. And here one more angle, one more view of the low tide Octopus Rock or Eagle Rock, depending on who's talking. And I'm going to try to shoot pictures of it from time to time during the course of the day, showing what that looks like until there's just the top little piece of that pinnacle sticking out of the water. And here we have a slightly different picture. Tide is coming in fast, going from a -2 to about an 18-footer. And still it's not nearly as big a tide as we might see here. Rarely as much as a 30-foot vertical change, but in a few minutes, well, an hour or so, just the top of that little island is all that'll be exposed. And there'll be a piece left on the top of that island about the size of your hat, and that's all. 6-hour tide change from full low to full high. Here we are looking at the velocity of the incoming tide. It's not quite yet pulling on the boat mooring as hard as it will when in the next hour it's going to be pulling even harder. You imagine if you were holding on, you're standing on the bow of the boat and holding on to that line, how aggressively this water is coming in, just like a river. It's really ripping out there. And if we zoom over here onto the flats, it's quite wonderful if we could spend the time just having the camera focused on a little place, like let's say that one right there. Zoom the other way. And let's just zoom to this little place and let's just try it for a minute. And we're going to go out there and see how quickly the tide is filling that up. You see that buoy moving as the tide is now grabbing a hold of the boat. Camera's standing still. Boat's just responding to the tide. Tide just lifted the boat off of the bottom where it was sitting. And pretty quickly, you may have already noticed something behind you in the distance there on the muscle bar that's going underwater. Now we'll jump in the kayak and we'll zoom out there and we'll take a closer look at how quickly that tide is coming in. The crows out there, Corvus maritimus, the fish crow, the maritime crow, taking this last opportunity to get a feed before the tide covers their breakfast table. We'll just take another minute here at this particular angle down close to the water's edge to zoom in on the boat pulling on the mooring, the speed of the incoming tide. And perhaps you can hear that sound. It's like a waterfall as the water is ripping past that buoy. A slight digression here as we watch this beautiful sea jelly. If Deborah Klein was here, one of our naturalists, she would tell us exactly which species this is. But as I'm looking with my naked eye, not through the lens, but watching my naked eye, I see that all around that particular jelly that's the principal thing in your field of view at the moment, there's all manner of smaller and smaller creatures, reminding me of the Ogden Nash that says, little bugs have littler bugs upon their backs to bite 'em, and so it goes on, till at last ad infinitum. And so it is down there in the tide pools. Well, this is a challenge for any camera because I'm shooting almost directly into the sun, but I wanted you to be able to see the speed at which this water is rushing by. Stable here. But the speed at which the water is coming in, speed at which it's rushing by, best explanation or description would be just to compare it to a river. It's like a great river. And shooting almost directly into the sun is our friend there, the little Octopus Rock, going further and further underwater. And out here our friends from the corvid family. The Corvidae are the birds that have the highest level of avian intelligence: crows, magpies, ravens, and jays. The tide is just about to pick my boat up, which it just did, and I'm going to zoom a little bit on these beautiful fish crows, northwestern crows. And they know that this territory is just about to go underwater, and they're determined to get the last bit of food, take it off to their squawking youngsters who have recently fledged. I'm going to drop down here in the foreground now and just let you see the speed at which this foam is zipping by. I'm holding the camera still, other than the kayak moving as it's being lifted by the tide. Let's watch here for just a moment as we see the tide sweeping in here across the Mussel Bar. Gives you some sense of the rapidness of the intrusion of the salt water into all of these pools out here, just rushing in to fill the voids. And this whole Mussel Bar on which I'm standing will be underwater in just a few more minutes. Here it comes. It's gonna, in the space of the time I'm talking, it's gonna cross that little dike right there in front of it, and then you'll see it spill into this little pool just to the right of where I'm shooting at the moment. Because there's a slightly different gradient here, and because this water has foam on top of it, this advancing of the water looks even more dramatic. How cool is that? That's just an incoming tide, and it's not even all that big a tide in terms of its vertical change. It can still go down a good deal more and come up a good deal more, in which case the speed of this advancing water moves even more quickly. Watch this now. It's going to come together from opposite sides of the sandbar on which I'm standing. Water on my right moving to the left, water on the left moving to the right. Here it comes. The two waters meeting right there. Whoosh. It's coming in all right, big time. I guess the message here can be going, going, gone. I think I'm going to go see if I can find Morgan and get him to stand on top of that rock when it gets down to being just big enough for one person to stand on. That's our little rock going underwater. Here's our friend the rock now, with the McBride's house in the background, and the rock being reduced to a smaller and smaller pinnacle as the tide continues to rise. Here's a short high tide panorama as we scoot around the beautiful little home cove. There's the main lodge and the sauna, banging into a boat here. Morgan's boat on the mooring, the guide room, Crow's Nest Mast Dock, Solarium Boathouse, and up to Goose Point. Let's just go up and see Goose Point. Hey, hello Goose Point. Anybody on the front porch? Nope. So it's interesting to be recording the last few minutes of film on this hour-long program by coming up here to Lodge Point and showing my friends and family this beautiful view that the new lodge will have. With any luck at all, Mike's going to be up here turning a shovel of earth this September. This view right through there would zoom us out to Lower Cook Inlet, take one or two of these trees out, and we'd have a beautiful view of Augustine Volcano. And here we are sweeping around, and down there is the boat house, and you can't see anything else from up here in the greenery except for right there we have the roof of the homestead cabin. Right in there's the homestead, and out in the distance you can hear Mozart's 40th Horn Concerto as we're looking down on the back of the greenhouse. And sweeping on around here, actually the morning sun makes me think that perhaps the dining room should be at this side, because the morning sun, breakfast time, would come booming right in. There, it's in play. Now it's recording. This is the front of the lodge. High tide. Push the button again and it goes off. Watch the screen there. See it?
Record.
Okay, is your finger in the position where you can zoom?
Yes.
Try zooming in. And then
all right.
zoom back out.
All right.
And then hit the red button to stand by.
Go!
Good morning to my friends and family. It's the 1st of September. Beautiful morning outside, beautiful, still and calm, and a very low tide. And as I was starting my morning yoga practice, I thought it might be a nice time to share with you the room in which it occurs. And waiting for me in my little morning meditation ceremony is my friend Ame Padme Hum, the jewel in the lotus, the name for Buddha. I was especially struck this morning by the beauty of the metaphor of the Buddha there and the shadow cast on the wall from the light outside, and the shadow from the candle burning for my dear Nora Crayer, who's in the hospital. Mind and body and spirit in balance right there with the two shadows and